Hello everyone, welcome to my show, NainaMD Beverly Hills, Fusion of Science and Beauty. And today is going to be a great show as always. You know my passion is for anti-aging and regenerative medicine. And I'm again going to discuss a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. I've been involved in this organizations that have a lot to deal with sexual trafficking. I have a fabulous guest. She's a sexual trafficking survivor. Her and I have worked together for so many years, and I really wanted to bring her on the show, and I'm so glad today that I have the pleasure of bringing on Kate Kelly. How are you, Kate?
Good, thank you.
And you know, I just wanted to, everyone's going to be asking, well, what does sexual trafficking have to really do with anti-aging, regenerative, integrative medicine? And I really want to get into the fact that sexual trafficking is now a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? Mm-hmm. Pretty much next to drugs.
It's up neck and neck with drugs and arms.
Yeah, yeah. And having said that, a lot of the women that and now males as well mm-hmm. that are surviving this a tremendous ordeal that become survivors. They are usually get help with to deal with PTSD as we know it, post-traumatic stress disorder, and various other depression, anxiety. But no one really recognizes, and that's really what I wanted to touch on also in the show, is that there are, it's a conventional medicine really doesn't recognize a term, but it's something called adrenal fatigue. Mm-hmm. It's when they have had so much stress. And, Dr. Susie Shooter, she's also an anti-aging and integrative medicine. She's a psychiatrist who went into the more integrative aspect and actually wrote an article on saying how a lot of the PTSD symptoms and adrenal fatigue symptoms actually are very, very similar. And so I just wanted to touch on that. I wanted to touch on your story, and I wanted to really also touch on that you've made such a success of yourself and you have a fabulous business, which we'll get into. And it's just one of those stories that everyone likes to hear because, when people go through a really, really tough time and they actually rise above that, those are the heroes, and those are the stories that we always look to inspire us. So tell me, if you could tell the audience a little bit, you were basically a sexual traffic survivor, right?
Well, I guess I would consider myself a survivor of sexual exploitation. I worked with a lot of people that have been trafficked in that situation. Yes. My situation was different in the fact that I chose to go in willingly. Yes. I just couldn't get out willingly. And so that's what put me on the spectrum there. When I moved here with the Hollywood dream, just like everybody else, an 18-year-old girl who wanted to be a singer and an actress, and I wanted to try all those different things. And I was a licensed massage therapist, so I knew that would get me in the door to, be able to make money to try to work on my dreams. And throughout my 20s, I started working with a bunch of different TV networks as a production assistant and working my way up. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, I got to meet so many different people in film and television. I ended up on a bunch of tour buses. I'm traveling around the world now with all these different rock stars, and I'm experiencing this whole different side of Hollywood that most people don't get to see. Yeah. And in doing that, and in being in Beverly Hills and in situations where there are big parties and things like that, I started noticing that there were a lot of parties where there were men with 10 women around them, and they're not cool enough to know 10 women, so you kind of wonder where they came from. Right. And so as you get to know these men and you get to understand and talk to these girls in the bathroom, you realize a lot of them are hired, a lot of them are there not willing, a lot of them were kidnapped at a young age, a lot of them were taken from other states. And so I started realizing that there was a pattern, and this pattern was developing more and more throughout the Hollywood circuit. And I got myself into a situation where my family was in a crisis, and I needed to come up with a bunch of money. And so I willingly went into dancing, not nude, just as a bikini. And then from there, I ended up working with a couple clients that were multi-billion-dollar clients. And these men, I started seeing the parties and the patterns with them as well. And in doing that, I came across an organization who informed me basically of what trafficking was and how exploitation worked. That there are people who go in willingly, but then they can't get out. Mm-hmm. And there's girls that, you know, think they're going to meet a guy who's their boyfriend, who meets them at the mall, who's going to woo them, and I'm going to buy you a purse, and I'm going to take you here, and I'm going to do that. And then later on, it turns into and then later on, hey, let's get drunk, and you know, you want to hook up with my friend? Hey, I'll pay you to hook up with my friend. Hey, and it turns into more and more and more, and the girls, you know, can't get out. Or you get the girl or the guy or trans. I mean, this is happening to so many different types of people. And, you know, you see kids in the middle of the night that are runaways that go sit at Denny's, and, you know, a lot of traffickers, those are the perfect targets for them. They'll go and wait at these places knowing that these kids are trying to just drink that one cup of coffee and have a place to go for the night. And they'll offer them a place to go. They think it's safe. They wake up and they've lost their passport, they've lost their ID, their bags have been ransacked, and they're stuck, and they have no way out. And, you know, so there's so many different types of trafficking that happen. You know, there's some exploitation that happens in high school where guys are exploiting other girls or other guys. You know, you're seeing in Hollywood all these different types of, you know, whether it be the parties, whether it be just girls that go in being an escort for dinner or something else and then turn into something else. So there's so many different types of what's happening. And one of the big passions for me was, first of all, figuring out how to remove myself from the situation safely, which was scary. It took a long time to get out of that situation.
That was a story that you told me how we shared.
And then the second thing was figuring out how to help some of the people that I had met in my journey and figure out how do we get everybody out of this and into a safer spot. And I started working with an organization that's based out of Connecticut, and I decided that I wanted to connect my Hollywood skills and connections with them in order to see if we could raise more awareness and build a platform. Mm-hmm. So I pulled in 34 celebrities that I've been working with, and that all had over 2 million followers on social media platforms, and had them all do a video wearing a coin. And we did.
Remember you gave me that
yes,
coin,
and we have this coin.
We got involved. Mm-hmm. We tried to start an organization.
Yes.
That we're restructuring that.
Yes, we're restructuring it now, and now we're working with other organizations that are able to do things way more effectively than we are. You know, and they're so much more advanced than we are in different realms. And so I think in finding that out, it's just been it's a learning curve, and it's a journey, and it's figuring out how to help yourself first and then help others. You know, and one of the analogies I love in life is, we're all kind of like a glass or a vessel, and we have to be completely full in order to fill other people up. We have to be able to give from our overflow, because if we're not full, if we tip over, we don't have enough left in us. And then, and we're not helping them or ourselves. But if we're full and we have an overflow always going, then we can constantly help other people. And I think that that's been one of the big, ideas in my journey in healing, is how to heal myself and then how to help others. And so through the organization, in doing the thing with the coins, we realized, and in meeting you, that one of the big things with adrenal fatigue and with, all the different types of PTSD that you experience in multiple traumas, is that you lose the ability to dream. Yeah. And your brain literally stops dreaming. Like, you cannot dream in your sleep. You go to bed, you wake up, and it's part of the trauma. Your body's trying to, reset. And there's so many different studies now on the chemicals and what's happening there. And for me, my brain got worn out, between whether it was drug use, whether it was, too much trauma.
Plus, I know that you were told different things by different doctors.
Different things, different doctors.
So,
I also survived.
Long story short, she came. I just discovered a few of the imbalances, and it was just very. She was being told to be put on medications and
for the rest of my life.
For the rest of her life, And it's really interesting because. When I met her, I did just the opposite. Through nutrigenomics, which is nutrients that really can change the way you express your genes, just through that genomic regimen, it literally changed your life.
It changed me completely.
And simultaneously, right after that, I was being attacked for integrative medicine, and it was just, and I ended up sharing a lot of what she went through because I fought my attacks on that, and I remember spending years saying, look, this is a real deal. This is, it may not be standard of care medicine, but this is what works, and this is what we need to implement. And so during that whole thing, during my, I remember my false allegations and all this thing, I started to develop, I started to share all the trauma and the stress that you were, in a way that you've gone through.
Exactly.
But it's just the most amazing thing when you say you stop dreaming, because I did. I experienced that aspect of PTSD. I just stopped dreaming.
And, I agree. I wasn't dreaming for a long time either. And that was hard for me. It was a tough situation to be in where from the time, I also survived an attack during this whole thing. And the emotional thing with the emotional, I guess, effect of the disfigurement, along with all of the traumatic things. You can't dream at night, and if you do, you're having nightmares, or, you wake up in a night sweat or something.
How did you start dreaming again?
I think the first thing was coming to you, and it was a miracle. Here I came straight out of the hospital. I was told I was going to be on medicine for my thyroid. My thyroid had gone into basically hyper mode, that I was really failing. I was having other failing problems with other organs. Other things were going wrong. And, you somehow saw something and went, okay, hold on, there's something we might be able to tweak or look at. And I think through the blood work, you were able to check some different things that other people didn't check, which are like the reverse T3, reverse T4, things like that other doctors don't tend to look at right away. And we were able to find all the different things in me. And instead of using medication to replace that with nutraceuticals, vitamins, whatever it was, all the different types of nutrients, to watch that change me. It was, less than 3 months, I think. My blood had regulated, and they took me off all the medication from the hospital. I was only on vitamins. Now I only take a multivitamin and a probiotic.
That's another thing. People don't realize that. Like, a lot of times when I'll put, when we'll, like, as integrative physicians or anti-aging regenerative physicians, we put people on nutrigenomic regimens, and I go and lecture about this. That doesn't mean it's a forever thing. And you're the perfect testimonial for that.
You add things as you need them.
Thank you. And your body's constantly changing. We're energy, and in quantum physics, I don't have to even now defend that anymore. That that we're just we operate on a different vibrational frequency. So once you fix that, then you just kind of go along, and then something else may happen, and you need maybe a whole different set of things. And it just goes like that.
And I think it was that two-part thing of getting the nutrients in and detoxing. Using the LBG machine, other things, pulling out all of that, and it just reset. Yeah. And I've been going like this for 3.5 or 4 years.
And then you were ready for your to treat with some aesthetic treatments. And I'm surprised, because a lot of times what we did, a lot of the dermatologists would say, you need to have these repeat treatments, right? Especially with fillers and things like that. But we were able to get your own collagen to start going, and
stimulated
stimulated.
I went from having scars all the way up the side of my face from gravel to maybe a couple little dots now, and it's gone. It's just constantly regenerating.
And this is again, and I think. Again, it's just a perfect testimonial to be able to say you don't need, again, to have the same thing keep done. It depends. That's where the doctor has to know their biochemistry. They have to be astute, and we have an obligation. Doctors have an obligation to their clients that they need to know the biochemistry. They need to know the alternative. They need to know the
changes, like with me, how you were able to map the changes as it went. And then, I started dreaming again. And that was like the first sign of healing. And that's why we did that for the organization. We called it the Dream Again campaign, because it was, acknowledging that and all the other survivors that, we're still here, and you are able to survive, and you can make it. And once you start dreaming again, then not only is your mind healing, but then you can also start planning for your future and what you want to do. And that's when things become exciting. But you need the energy to do it. And so by, like you said, healing the body to give you the energy to do it, then you have the energy to get out there and just, take over, do whatever you want,
We're ending the segment, but we're gonna come right back to see really what I want you to give some advice. What you can do, what person who has a sexual trafficker, what has the experience of having that, what they can do to get out, and so forth. Hit us up on the website. It's www.NainaMD.com. That's NainaMD.com. And your website is, we can talk about our business too.
Yes, it's hossybotanicals.com, but we can talk
we're
about
coming back to talk about that. We'll be right back. NainaMD, Beverly Hills, Fusion of Science and Beauty. Hello everyone, this is NainaMD, Beverly Hills, Fusion of Science and Beauty. Welcome back to my show, and we were talking about sexual trafficking and just people who've experienced that. It's not just the PTSD, it's a lot of it is the adrenal fatigue, which a lot of integrative physicians know how to treat. And she's a perfect testimonial. Kate Kelly, I've come to know her over the years, and I'm so glad you could come on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
So tell me, we were continuing again. We're now in how people can, when they're healing, you start dreaming again. Mm-hmm. What advice, or how and we've gone into this before when we tried to create the organization. What advice? How do you get people out? It's really hard.
It's really hard, and it's really scary, and it's
scary.
So hard when you're in that situation. I think there's a couple things that I suggest to a lot of people is, when you're ready for help, start surrounding yourself with the people, whether it be a good friend or a family member or just a little bit of support.
Until
there is no trust. But you always will find someone that you can trust a little bit. Yeah. And there are different numbers you can call. There's a number called the Polaris Project that's out there right now. It's a 24-hour number. It's global. Mm-hmm. And that is a great number to be able to call anytime. If you need to be able to have somebody come rescue you, if you need to be able to get out and have someone come meet you, if you need help getting out. There are ways to be able to do that.
That's called Polaris?
The Polaris Project, and that's global. There are other organizations. Unitas is a huge one, and they're able to, whether it be providing aftercare or just, any kind of support to get you out. And then I think the most important thing is, once you get yourself in a better situation, it's trying to figure out how to love yourself again, and how to get past the shame and just forgive yourself and realize that, we don't make mistakes. We're making choices to learn, and that's what it is, and we're learning. And so it's just being able to start changing your inner dialogue, being nice to yourself. Every time you call yourself an idiot, stop and just say, no, I'm not an idiot, and I can do this, until your brain starts to reset. And eventually, you will. Yeah. It just takes time.
Yeah. You went from, you're still an activist, you went from, really getting super involved in the organizations, but you went into a little bit of a different direction as well, that helped you heal. You started a company called Hasu Botanicals. Tell us about it. I think it's amazing, you guys, because this is right along with me, because I believe in, let's be as least toxin-free environment, right? And so I was just amazingly surprised, like we were like flowers, right? Look at the chemicals. So tell us about the company.
So what I decided to do was do things that were, part of my healing process was doing things that would fill up my soul. Things that were good for the soul. Yeah. And flowers are good for the soul. Everybody loves flowers, and everybody loves candles, So things that I started to create for my home was a company called Satori Candles, where I created candles that were free of any kind of harmful chemicals. Yeah. It took me months to formulate, and I used all natural oils. And so that way it would burn, and I felt like, okay, I could calm myself that way. And I've noticed that a lot of other survivors I work with want to come over and work on it too. And then it rolled into the flowers of, wow, this really feels good. This is healing, and watching the look on someone's face when you bring them an arrangement, and seeing that you can bring other people joy. And also just spending those moments, the Zen moments of repetition, of just letting your mind heal and working on flowers and things like that. It really does kind of reset you, and it provides a space that is great for me and, other survivors that I'll bring in sometimes to work on projects with us. And it just makes it such a great environment to heal, but also, is, like you said, you're giving joy to everyone, and you're also doing it toxin free. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me, is how can I create a flower company where I'm not putting toxin in the flowers? How can I also start, eventually we're working on a skin body product, things like that are all going to be natural as well. And I wanted to do things that were just all things plants. How do we take something that's from the earth and use it to heal ourselves? And that's kind of what we did with the vitamins. You're taking natural things from the earth to heal yourself, and this is kind of a way to heal the soul. It's just a different realm.
No, that's wonderful. What are we doing now in terms of in LA? Some of the organizations and things like that in the involvement.
Absolutely. I think the LBGT Center they have been doing quite a bit lately. They're really working hard with several organizations to make things work. There are the police departments are now undergoing new training, and there are several people coming in globally to train police departments, not only in Los Angeles, but about exploitation and how minors, rather than prosecuting minors, to look at that as an exploitation. This is a child that is being sexually exploited, and providing them with the healing that they need so that they can continue to grow. And I think that's been one of the big changes and shifts in legislation, as well as with the police departments, in educating people in what is prostitution, what is trafficking, and the difference between minors and adults, and people going in willingly and people trying to get out, and people who want to be there versus people who don't. And I think that's been great, is to educate people so that people really do understand all of it. And there's also a lot of organizations that have been coming in and doing rescues. They're doing rescues on the larger scales. They're working.
What are some of those organizations?
The organizations, Unitas, they're coming here. They're going to be doing a lot of work. The Love 146 is continuing to do work here. And that's the organization that we did with them. There are, Ashton Kutcher has a couple wonderful organizations that he works with and that he pilots. So there are quite a few here in LA that are working in the Hollywood
circuit. Is the industry growing of sexual trafficking? Or is it that stable?
I think it's one of those things, unfortunately, that will always be growing. And that is one of the hardest things, is until we are able to get more legislation passed, and there are some major shifts that happened. I think it's going to still be escalating, and that's one of the hardest things. And that's why it's so important that people are educated and know. You hear stories even last week of a woman on a plane, a stewardess noticing a girl on a flight. Something didn't look right. She was being trafficked and got her back home. So it's things like that. It's being aware and educating people so they can be aware of what's around them, because you might never know. You're sitting at a restaurant one night and you notice something's not right. Do the right thing. Make the call. Call 911. Police are now educated enough through 911, they can send immediate response. And there are other organizations as well that will come in and do immediate response as well. So there are ways to do it immediately. Yeah.
Do you find what is happening, or what are people trying to do as far as centers for? Remember we talked about that we were trying to see if there was enough funding to try to form these centers for sexual trafficked people, because it's a very different environment that they need.
It's a very different environment. I think.
And if you could explain that, why is it that they just can't go to any shelter?
Exactly.
So if you could explain that,
well,
I think that's very important.
There's a lot of issues that come in with rescues. A lot of survivors, including myself, don't necessarily agree with a lot of the rescue methods. They're not effective. And a lot of
that's the point I'm trying to make.
Exactly. There are a lot of religion-based, organizations that do that, and you're coming, from, if you're, working with a person who has had no religious experience, and then you're putting them in an environment of something that is already kind of pushy on something that, when they're really fragile, it's a lot for them to take, and that's why
in other words, there's some of the rescue is based on the fact that they may like you go into, in other words, you go into a safe environment, but then you're expected to either convert or you're expected to adapt a certain religious belief.
Exactly.
And so that's too much for someone to handle, because they need healing, and even though there is healing in definitely in religion, but they need to be able to choose that. They need to make that choice on their own.
And how
what
to heal
religion
on
that
their
they
own.
want to adopt, and they need to be able to heal. So we need centers that are not going to just push one theory or force another theory, because that's another form of control. Which that's really what sexual traffickers are trying to get away from is they need time to just be in a safe environment where they're not asked to do something that they don't want to do.
That's exactly
or
right.
that they're just not ready to do.
And they can find their own path for healing. I think,
Yeah.
everybody has methods that work best for them, and some don't work at all. And so it's finding the ones that are really effective.
Going back to the adrenal fatigue and all of that, is there also a lot of, just tell about the lifespan. Remember we touched on that a lot of the sexual people who are being sexual trafficked have a much shorter lifespan.
They
correct?
do. Well, the average lifespan of a person in sexual exploitation is 7 years after the time that they come in. And so you usually don't make it about past that 7 years, whether it be from getting pregnant and you end up, you're no longer useful during that time, whether you have developed some kind of a sexual transmitted disease. And there's also, sometimes the commodities, they look at human as commodity, which is so unfortunate, but that's how they see it. And so if they look at it as if it's getting, like the person's too tired or they're not able to do this anymore. And so that's why, with all of the trauma and stress, the body can't take more than a couple years of that amount of stress and trauma. And,
what happens to when the victims of sexual trafficking, when they reach that limit that you're saying, so to speak, and they're not able to, that it's showing and they're just not able to carry on their function, so to speak, right? The commodity function. What happens to them? Are they let go? Are they able to go free, or what happens?
It's very, very, very rare that someone would be allowed to willingly be going free. Usually it ends with they will kill you, or you find some way out that's a miracle, But in most cases,
so a lot of a lot of the things that you hear about, a lot of the overdoses and things like that may not. Really
it might not really be what is actually happening.
And we talked about that too.
And I think that and so it's a really tough thing. But I think one of the best things that we can do is just continue to provide people those safe spaces and work with organizations. I think there's so many organizations now choosing to work together, and the more we do, the more of an impact it's going to have, because it will be able to reach more people globally, and also working with everybody's different ideas and methods is what's really pushing and into the forefront and helping it evolve into something bigger.
Well, this has been a passion of mine. I'm so glad you could make it on the show.
Thank you
Everyone
for
here
having me.
understand that victims of sexual trafficking really, it's not just the PTSD, but they suffer other things that really involve or really need the awareness also of integrative people, and especially integrative doctors. And I welcome. I mean, we've done it together, right? You referred, and we worked together with people, victims,
several survivors,
and we have amazing stories to tell. You were just sharing just before the show someone who got married, someone that we worked with that is now happily married, and a lot of stories do end up really amazing, provided that they've had this intervention. So again, the passion is for just the awareness that we wanted to pass on to you, and to understand that integrative medicine really does have a role, right?
Absolutely.
You're a living testimonial.
Living testimony.
Hasu Botanical, she's an amazing company.
So
it really rubbed off, toxin-free life.
Right? It did, and now we're living toxin-free life.
That's great. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is NainaMD, Beverly Hills, Fusion of Science and Beauty. We'll be back next week with another amazing show.